This is the perfect time to start a side hustle, and this is also the perfect time to start a podcast about starting a side hustle. Kick it. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. This is the Living My Side Hustle podcast.
Hi everybody, thank you. Welcome back to the Living My Side Hustle podcast. Happy to have you back again. We did an interview recently for another podcast that Jen and I do called the Upcycle Canada podcast. Now, the Upcycle Canada podcast is all about our business that we run. And we had a guest on that has been listening to that podcast and has gone through all 20 episodes at this point of that podcast that we started back in October of 2021. We were having a lot of fun on that podcast, but we wanted to grow our podcast beyond the confines of recycling and upcycling and talk about side hustles. Jen and I have been doing this side hustle of Upcycle Canada since 2014, and we've turned it into a store. We've hired our first employee, and we created a podcast. That was our first podcast, the Upcycle Canada podcast, and it's been fun, really, really fun. And we've been throwing out these little challenges at the end of our podcast over there on Upcycle Canada podcast, just to kind of engage with our listeners and to hear back from them, because we put these podcasts out and we see the numbers, we see you're listening, and we thank you so much that you guys are listening in and making us a part of your week. That just it's outstanding, and we're very, very thankful. But we want to have some kind of connection. We want to be able to talk to you. We would love to hear your thoughts and get your opinions, and maybe there's a topic, maybe there's a guest, maybe there's something that we can bring onto the show that would add value to you and to where you're at. So when we were listening to our guest today, she was sharing a lot of great tips about how she started her business from scratch. And there was so much that came out in our time together that paralleled perfectly with what we do here on Living My Side Hustle. That we're like, okay, without sending you over to the Upcycle Canada podcast and having you maybe get lost in all the different podcast episodes, we thought we'd just recreate this interview here with you, tailor it more to this podcast and to you, our listener here on Living My Side Hustle, and be able to share a great interview and share some inspiration from somebody who went from a very dark place, really, during COVID, all the pandemic closures, having a newborn baby in the house during that time, all of the struggles of a new mom, alone, and cut off from the world because of COVID restrictions. And we thought, you know what, let's bring this interview over here and share it with you. And you might just be the person who needs to hear this interview today. And we didn't want to pass up the opportunity to share it with you. So this is Living My Side Hustle. We have a great guest today. Her name is Samantha Hulst. She has a business that she created from her home, and it's called Junebird.ca. Junebird.ca. It's going to be, all the information will be in the show notes. And I want to share this interview with you. Jen's at work, so I'm flying solo right now. But I wanted to jump on and share this podcast episode and this interview with you because I think it will give you great value. And Samantha shares some really great hacks and some apps and some coaching that she's been getting for starting a new business, which has now led to us having the opportunity to speak to those coaches, to talk to the app developers, and have them come on the podcast. It's like this full circle of life, a very Simba moment. And we're sharing this. We're going to lift up Simba to you, just like in Lion King. We're holding this interview up to you, and we hope that you're going to enjoy this and accept this as living My Side Hustle. A great interview. Samantha Hulst from Junebird.ca. You have to go over and check out what she's doing. Here's portions of that interview that we wanted to share with you here on Living My Side Hustle. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. Here we go. Let's hit play. Let's go. I want to hear this as well. Thanks. So we want to talk about Junebird.ca. If you're listening to this podcast, you need to go and check out Junebird.ca. We're going to put all the links for all these things we talk about in the show notes so people can just click them so we don't have to write them all down while we listen, because we could be driving right now and that could be terrible. But go to Junebird.ca on Instagram and you need to follow Samantha because she's doing great things. Tell us, first of all, where did the name Junebird.ca come from? Yes. Junebird, and how you got started. We would love to hear it.
Yeah. So I'll just start with who we are. So Junebird.ca is what we do is we take fabrics and textiles and upcycle them into new and creative toys and accessories for kids. And I started this really as a result of the pandemic, like lots of other things that have happened to many of us. So I was 6 months pregnant when the pandemic came along in March 2020 and everything shut down. I had to stop working because I had a toddler as well. So there was, 3 months of time where I was off and didn't expect to be off prior to the due date, which was May. So we're trudging along, going along. We started making some masks for ourselves and the community, just because there was, the need for that. And, I was also going to be needing masks. The pregnancy was not ideal. So I was already in and out of the hospital quite a bit. So it was something I needed for myself and my family to have these masks. Nobody had them. It wasn't something that the world had ever thought of. So I had started doing that. Time goes by, baby's born, I'm back home, and you're isolated with a newborn as it is, never mind in a pandemic. Nobody can come and help you. You can't invite anybody over. People want to, but it's just, it's not safe to have people in your home or even ask them to come because it's not fair to have them say no to you. So I struggled so much. Like it was unbelievable what the isolation of COVID was on top of the isolation of the pregnancy with, nobody talks about it. So it's really, actually really hard. But the, postpartum depression and things like that do hit a lot of women quite a bit. So just to share that with you guys, it actually feels really nice that you want to listen and hear that um, about how it sort of came into my world a bit. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm so lost. I'm so just, I'm not myself. Like I barely even felt human after this. And you're sleeping in 45-minute increments, and just the weight of newborn and pandemic was just like mentally just too too much. Um, so I just kind of remembered, I'm like, sewing the masks, it was so relaxing and it gave me a purpose. It had, me doing something. And, I needed things for my newborn. You have one baby, the second baby, they're never going to be the same. So, my daughter, she was much more drooly and a worse sleeper and needed a pacifier and all these things that I didn't experience with the first. I'm like, I can't get this stuff. Like it's still COVID. You can't order things. You can't find things. Things are like delayed just by the nature of everybody needing to order online. So when I realized, oh, I can make them. I have these old torn clothes that nobody can wear anymore. I can't take them anywhere because nothing's being accepted. I'm like, oh, the sewing the masks. Why don't I start sewing these drool bibs? Drool bibs were the first thing that I started. So I made a few of those, and what I started realizing is because the sewing machine that I have is from my gran, and she's in her 90s now, and I couldn't see her. It's still I barely have even seen her in the last 3 years because of COVID. So every time I started sewing, it was this connection to my gran, who used to sew all of our clothes when we were little. She used to, make toys for us. She'd make matching dresses for our dolls, that we would have a matching dress as like a little girl. So, but I still have a box of her clothes that she made for our dolls, and we'll bring them out when my daughter's a little older. So she was the one, and her name is June. So that's where the June comes from, in our name. And sitting there at the sewing machine was this connection to the family that I couldn't see, and it gave me this meditative, sort of relaxing, creative outlet that would let me escape my sort of own lockdown world and my own isolated world, and gave me something that I could actually use in my home. And so the more I started thinking about it, the more of how could I share this with other people, and what are all the other sort of driving, factors in my life of inspiration and strongness. So um, the second part of her name, the bird, is a dedication to my grandfather, who has this love of birds. All that he ever wanted to do was bird watching. You always find him knowing everything about birds, seeing everything about birds. If you ever stumped on what to get him, there was never enough bird feeders that they they could have in their yard. So the Junebird is a combination of their names, and dedicated really to the two of them as this sort of inspirational, strong set of people that have always been around
I
in
love
my
Very
it.
life.
cool. That's
I
really
love
So
it.
cool.
that's kind of the story of how we started, and why the connection to the sewing, and being able to share that and tell people that I have had this experience and what's led up to it, and hopefully be able to inspire people to follow through on some of the things that they want to share with others, is what we're also trying to do. So,
Excellent. So when did you make the decision to go from making stuff for yourself to start making stuff for other people?
almost instantly, really, I'm like, everybody needs these things. Like, the community is going to need some place to find things locally. How can I get the word out to let our neighborhood know that I can give them resources, to new parents, or even parents that want to find new toys and new things for their kids, so they don't have to wait so long. So it took a few months to sort of get up and going with social media and websites, and getting the word out. But it was just such a purpose, because that sort of brain shift, like, I've never really had that experience where you feel such a strong, I don't even know how to explain it, but like a motivation, where I'm so down low, and all of a sudden it was like the first time I actually had some sort of, I'll say, like, true happiness in a long time. um, and I'm like, that's it. If I can feel like this, then everybody needs to feel like this, or have the opportunity to have that light switch go off. Like, that true light bulb moment was what did it for me. You're like, really at the beginning of, I had made just a couple of drill bits for myself and for the baby to use, and I'm like, that's it. Everybody's gonna need this. Everybody's gonna want to know, and how can I help them, achieve some of these goals, because there's no way I'm the only person struggling like this.
So do you have a mentor that kind of helped you with starting a business and doing social media and building a website, all that stuff? Do you have somebody in your corner that helps you with that, or are you just doing this and learning it as you go?
Partly learning as I go. I mean, it's short of the small amount of podcasts I listen to. There is one that I connected with for a business, um, as well. So they've been good supports and good resources and tools, and workshops, and classes and things that I've been able to take through that organization to put into good practice as well. So they help with a lot of things of um, social media planning, and content planning. So I do it mostly on my own, but just with their support and knowledge, to I guess use as a guide, if that makes sense. But a lot of it is definitely sort of self initiated. Like, the website was my own, um, work in progress. I mean, I think it's up and it's going, and I think, I've had some great feedback on it, but that was all my own learning as well. I'd never designed a website before, so I'm definitely open to feedback on that as well.
So having a small business, you wear a lot of hats,
Yeah,
which you could probably make as well. But you wear a lot of hats, right?
yeah,
And you have to be kind of a little bit of everything when you're starting out because you don't have financial resources to hire people, to hire a team, right? You kind of have to do this yourself or it's not going to happen. So having a resource like that is great. And I'm sure there's other people who are in the same boat that you are in that would love to have that resource. So, we can always share that resource here on the podcast and let people know about that because it might be something that people would be interested in kind of following your path and maybe speaking to somebody like this, right?
yeah, for sure. I can definitely send you that information if you wanted to pop it in your show notes.
Sure, that'd be great.
That would be great.
That'd be
Yeah.
great. So you got your training to do what you do through your family and
Yeah.
growing up in that environment. Um, are there any things that you have taken as far as classes to help develop your skills beyond what you've learned through your family, or everything you've done is based on that?
Everything's based on the family. Just from seeing what my gran has done, the quality of work that she's made, the things the ideas that she's come up with. So from the creative side all the way through to technical side, as well. So it's all been sort of learned through her, and then just self practice, and just giving myself time to create something, see how it looks, alter it a little bit until it's sort of finessed into the right shape or the right toy or the right size, and really just having that patience with myself to get things right, or the way that I want them to be to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
right.
We're our worst
Um,
enemy, I think, sometimes
I
or
know.
critic, I suppose, when it
Yeah,
comes to that, because I know we've done the same when we're creating things. We see the
yeah,
flaws that have happened throughout
exactly.
it. And
And you learn though,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
I definitely
that's
learned.
the hardest thing for a new business, I think, is to wait until you think you're perfect before you start
yeah,
instead of
Yeah,
just starting,
yeah, yeah.
right?
You have to
exactly.
try.
And
Yeah,
just starting is fantastic, and that's definitely one of the things I'd like to reiterate too. It's like you just go for it. Like, you're never going to be 100% ready. It's never going to be 100% perfect, and you plan what you can, and then just go for it and see what people have to say, and take the compliments and take the critics, and work with both of them.
it's probably nice to even just to throw the idea out to your friends and family and say, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What are your thoughts?" Just
Yeah,
to kind of get that bit of encouragement as well, and just a little push probably to even once you've talked about it out loud, it's almost like, okay, I've kind of shared this. I probably should start, right, and you kind of
yeah,
commit to it a little bit better.
for sure.
Another thing I'm thinking for your products, so the fabrics that you have, is it do you have a lot of, where do you get them from? Is it recycled fabric, some of it? Do you buy stuff new? Do you get things donated, that kind of stuff?
I'm going to say it's mostly donated. So there is a local, I'll say, pre-loved children's fashion store in our neighborhood that I connected with. And anything that they can't resell, because people will bring sort of on I guess, a resale or consignment basis, and anything that she can't buy from the people who drop things off, because she inspects them really carefully, and there's a few holes or a few stains, the people probably don't necessarily want them back. They can't be donated for use because there's holes in them. I'll go and collect all those items from her. So it's a lot of children's clothes, of sleepers and pajamas and t-shirts, and use as much of it as I can in the products that I make. So everything primarily is some type of clothing that's just not quality enough for resale or donation to a charity.
Very cool.
So you don't have a problem getting material then? That's
Not
yeah.
too much. Um,
Okay.
it's it's pretty good. I mean, like there's always, I guess as I keep going, I'm sure I'm going to start to run low on my resources. And, I definitely want things to go first to, be resold through the children's fashion secondhand stores in the neighborhood, and then donated. It would be the next best thing to a family that just maybe needs some assistance with clothes for their child. And then the third would be to me, so I can turn it into something else. That can be new and loved for a long time again.
So was that a conscious decision when you were starting that you wanted to do use recycled materials, or was it at a cost savings to use recycled materials?
It was kind of both. It was kind of hard to get materials in the first place because of the pandemic, and where can I shop, and what can I get, and then how can I also make it affordable for people to get new items for their kids. So if I were to be able to source materials at minimal cost or low cost, or even no cost, then that cost savings is sort of passed down to people, so that there is a different market or a different price point that gives people options to buy as well. So reusing the fabrics also kind of comes back into, kids are into their clothes or their toys for such a short period of time that everything's outgrown, and you kind of feel bad about the short usage of stuff, whether it is a toy or it is a piece of clothing. So having the option of something that's already been loved once turned into something else, you feel a little bit more confident getting the things for your kids that they need, and not having as much of an environmental impact as well on that whole the whole process of just getting things for your kids to get them through like that 1 month. Like, I knew, like, my daughter, like, she can't be drooly forever, but I don't want to I don't want to buy all these drool bibs for her to use for 1 month, because I'm like just so tired of changing clothes, reusing and making those, which are still good, and I could pass them on to somebody else as well. So that was when I started just thinking more and more and more about it. It just seemed to be the right solution.
That's right. And when babies grow so fast, like little sleepers, right? They have them for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they're already outgrown them. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, now what do I do with all this stuff?
Yeah.
Right? So you need to send it to Junebird.ca, and that's where it needs to go.
That's where it needs to go.
Right?
Yeah.
To know that it's going to be repurposed and reloved. That's a great solution. And I love the podcast because we get a chance to talk to people that are a part of a solution, right? We've all found a problem in whatever area that we do, and we've been able to identify the problem, and now what can I do to fix that, or what can I do to step into the gap? And you're doing that, and that's admirable from us to look at, and we're cheering you on, saying this is exactly what we need. And are there people in your corner cheering you on where you are?
Yeah, there definitely are. So I think we've got family is really supportive in just getting, I don't even know what the word is, but just getting the time that allows me to do what I want to do for me, and for me to feel so empowered, I guess, is also the other word, to have a contribution to the community in this way with upcycling, and then meeting the people in the community as well who are supportive of this, and the neighbors who I've been able to chat with and have them just realize, oh yes, there are so many other resources out there, and connecting with people that have similar or complementary businesses that I'm just starting to find. And it's just created a whole nother world of people that I wouldn't have been able to connect with before. So there's so much support from, right in the home to strangers, basically, that are out there. I got a instant message from somebody on my Instagram saying, I just heard about you in this Facebook group, and what you're doing is fantastic. And I'm like, who are you?
Who told you?
Who told you? So somebody else is out there talking about me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this Facebook group, I don't even know what it is. So then I had to go research that. And then since I've joined it to follow who's in that group, and it was about zero waste in Toronto, and I'm like, wow, somebody's talking about me to somebody else who then just felt so compelled to say, hey, I like what you're doing, keep it up. And I'm like, whoa, it's just,
Yeah.
Feels good.
yeah, the feeling that comes with it.
It's
Yeah.
exciting,
Awesome.
right?
Yeah.
You're on the right path,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people are noticing, and it's great. And we want to encourage you
Yeah.
because we love what you're doing, and to have you on the podcast with us is it's like the end of the day for us. But we're like
Yeah.
both looking forward to this. Like we can't wait,
Yeah.
we get to talk to you, and
Yeah.
it's exciting
Yeah.
to know that there's people in your corner that support you, however they choose
sure.
or however they can support you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having an Instagram account and having a following on Instagram, a community that you're building, for a new business owner, how important to you is social media and connecting with an audience on, say, for example, Instagram?
For me, it's really important. So the two platforms I really focus on are Instagram and Facebook. I know they are pretty well connected, and they are part of the same company in a sense. But I do find that some people do stick to one versus the other. There are tons of platforms, but for me to learn them all, I've just sort of cut myself off on those two. They're the two I'm comfortable with. Um, they are sort of the ones that most people, when you go into, or I found anyway, into sort of any types of coaching or courses about social media and marketing, they are often focused on those two as well. So it helps to get, when you're getting support from those types of resources, that you're following those same types of social media platforms. And I'm just finding them more, I guess I want to say personal in a sense. Like maybe it's just me because I'm reading people's posts and getting to know who they are in this, even if it's such a digital world, but then you get those one or two, private messages, and it starts to become a bit more personal, a bit more real, that there are people behind the posts there, because you can share both content and written information as well as photos. There's both sides that you get to see of people, and of other complementary businesses as well. So you can see what people that you maybe want to collaborate with are working on. How are the other people in your community contributing to upcycling, or what are they doing for their businesses, and how can you support them, the ones that are in your neighborhood or even ones that are farther out of your neighborhood, to draw attention to them, and what are the people doing in your community. You get to start to recognize some of the places in your neighborhood, and you're building this community, and you see followers, and they're posting, that I went to the museum, or I went to a sports event, and you're like, oh yes, I've been there, I've done that. And you get this way of learning about people through those two platforms. So that's kind of why I just stick to those two, because I also don't want to spread myself so thin that I'm not getting the opportunity to learn about who's in my community, and who sort of shares some of these same thoughts about upcycling and recycling and environmentally friendly initiatives.
I know with what you've made and stuff. So for the timeline that you've made and created these things now, it's not been a long period of time, but do you have any favorite things that you enjoy more than other things to make, or have you had stuff that seems to be like a hot seller, I suppose?
Oh, that's a really good question. And right now, I would say that we have a dinosaur stuffy. It's like a taggy blanket. So, like a stegosaurus, there's all kinds of little tags that have that are for the spikes. So when you have a young child and they're learning about tactile and sensory experiences and teething, it gives them something to pull on. It gives them something soft. It gives them something to chew on, and those are definitely been the ones that have sold the most right now. So it's just something that is colorful and bright, so you get that sensory opportunity for that development as well with
That's
kids. So,
Have you done any custom things for people where they've come to you with a request and you've had to make something that you don't normally would make on your own?
I have not yet
Okay.
encountered one. I would definitely give it some consideration to see if there's something that I could help with creating. I know there's lots of opportunity for people who bring in like their baby's first sleeper that they came home from the hospital with, and they want to turn that into a stuffed animal. That is something that the child would have later, as they grow older, and keep with them as a memory of that. So there's definitely some opportunity to chat with people about what those custom options might be, and
Yeah,
creating those
one thing I
memories.
like about doing custom for people is they're coming to you, like you said, with the item that they have sentimental attachment to, and they're giving this to you and trusting you, you know, that they're going to get it back, first of all, but that, there's meaning behind the product, right? Personal connection with the product itself and the material. So to get it back, like you said, in a different form is great. Like I wish we had that for our kids looking back, but
Because we still have some of our kids' things, like the knitted sweaters or the onesies and things that they came home in the hospital. But it's almost like I have all that stuff.
see, there we go.
So, but I
Now we
never,
know
I
who to
didn't
talk to.
even think of like making it into something else. Like I was just, I know the kids when they look at them, they'll be like, I was that small. Like I seriously fit into that. It's like,
Yeah.
that's almost more entertaining than to try and. But I don't know. Like we don't have.
Absolutely.
They're just sitting in a box,
They're
right?
just sitting in a box. So
They have no purpose.
But it's a great
a
way
great idea.
to repurpose something instead of just sitting in it as a keepsake. Why not make it as a new little object or toy or something? Yeah.
Yeah, and then the child would have that for a little bit longer as they grow and play with that and start to use their imagination and connect with that stuffed animal. And as you're saying, it has a story behind it. So when you're working with local vendors that make these items, like everything has a story behind it, including the things that you guys are making as well. So connecting with people on that level is really, it's really personal. It's really
It
super
is, right?
nice.
And when you can connect the story back to the people and give them back something of meaning, like you can't get that in any other store, right?
Yeah.
You can't. So you are the only one who can do that. And having that customer trust always leads to the next thing. It's very rewarding to be able to give back and do something that means something to somebody on a deep level. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because one of the things I learned during this sort of whole pandemic and newborns and pandemics is that the resources that we have in the community aren't always known. So one of the things I've decided to do with Junebird is to pick an organization to make financial contributions to from our sales, and to help make awareness for different charities and organizations that people may not have heard of, that do need support, that support others, primarily organizations that are focused on moms and new parents within the communities. So you can always check out our website to find out about who we are supporting that year, and that's just again for me, but stretching that community and that feeling of community, and sense of pride in what you do, just a little bit more.
That's excellent.
It's really cool. Yeah.
It's very kind of you to do that, which is great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the charities that you help support really do appreciate it because, again, it's one thing to receive financial support for your charity, but then also recognition and someone who's promoting your charity is another thing that would cost them money to get in anyway, to get advertising. So you're helping in two ways, which is wonderful. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So what is the future of Junebird.ca? Where are you headed? What would, if you had, money's no object, there's no way you can't succeed. What do you think this could turn into for you down the road?
So I would love to turn this into a space where I could hire other makers to join with me. People that are creative, people that maybe need a little bit of support or extra income, something that they can do at home. That they're interested in sewing, even being able to teach somebody some sewing techniques that they could learn, create things for the shop, and sell much more than I have right now. Being able to offer more and more types of toys or accessories for kids, but being able to grow in the sense of supporting my community with other parents and other creative people that just need a little bit of focus or something that they are interested in but don't quite know what to do, or just to connect with somebody that might want to have some space and time on their own, but they want to create, but then what are they going to do with it after? So being able to take the things that they make and sell it in the shop would be fantastic. So finding those people and growing in that way would be something I would love to be able to do anytime anytime soon, so that we've got more available and more people part of the upcycling world.
So if there's a listener listening and they're in another province or country and they're like, I can sew, I have time, I have young children, or I'm retired, or I'm in a stage of my life where I would love to do something like this, would you be willing to help them if they reached out to you and said, can you just get me started and give me some ideas?
Yeah, give me a shout. You can reach me at hello@Junebird.ca. Send me an email, let me know what you're thinking about, and I definitely want to connect and see how you can start something like this in your community. See if we wanted to collaborate or join forces. Definitely willing to chat with anybody that is interested in something similar to this.
So you're not hiding the secret sauce, and you don't want anybody to be a part. You're open, right, to this?
I am totally open.
Excellent.
Open to this.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's a great model, and I think many people would be interested in this, right? So anything you want to leave the listeners with, any kind of advice starting a small business or upcycling, anything you want to share as far as who you are and how we can share your message further?
Yeah, I'd say, just go for it. It's the biggest piece of advice I could have. So, think of what it is that you find rewarding. Share it as much as you're comfortable with sharing it. Even if you're just inspired and you inspire yourself, and you don't share it with anybody, that's definitely okay too. So whatever you can do to help yourself relieve any anxiety or mental weight or stress, that helps you just feel more comfortable with yourself. Just do it. It doesn't have to be world changing. It can just be life changing in the sense of your own life, and that could be very, very big for some people. So I would say, if it's starting a business, that's great. If it's moving to a new job, that's great. If it's just buying something that's going to be a great meal for yourself, something that you want to enjoy, just go ahead and treat yourself, because you're definitely worth that, and you're definitely worth sharing your inspirations.
So the best way to find you, Junebird.ca. We are very thankful for you taking time for us today. Thankful for you for listening to our podcast. Yes. It's very surreal to have you come on now and be a part of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to listen to this podcast.
Me too.
Because there's so much great information here.
Yes.
I'm inspired.
I am.
You're inspired. You're inspired. You're obviously inspired.
Because I have a sewing machine too, but I don't see. This is the second time now in this week that's been brought up about sewing. So it could be the thing I need to start. So yes. So
you have a good person in your corner now that you can reach out to and get that support.
I'm right here anytime.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Junebird.ca. It's a place to go, and we're going to send people to you. And if you need help, you want to start something like this in your community, this is the person to talk to right here.
That's right. Absolutely.
Samantha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, and we will talk soon, okay?
Definitely. Talk soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
All right. This is Dave from Podcast. Just jumping on quick to tell you about TrueMediaSolutions.ca. What is TrueMediaSolutions.ca, you're asking? Well, TrueMediaSolutions.ca is the umbrella that is over all the different podcasts that we do here for you. We have several different podcasts. So if you go to truemediasolutions.ca, take a look and you'll find all of the different podcasts that my wife Jennifer or myself do, either separately or together. Check us out. Find out more about the podcast that we're doing by going to truemediasolutions.ca. We'll meet you over there. See you soon.